and set down some guidelines on how the meeting is going to go. What I'm going to do is read a list of, there are two different sets of letters that came in. One for the Matheson Park related correspondence, meaning nothing to do with dogs on leash in the park, that I will not read, but there are about 15 letters that I will speak to the person who sent the letter, and essentially a brief guide as to what it is that they said, whether they were pro or con. At this point, Larry, can I ask you, do you have a show of hands in the audience, in the electronic audience yet?
Yeah, right now there's actually one person and one trustee.
Okay. What I will do then is read the names of the letters and the names of the people that sent in the letters, and then summarize what it is that they spoke of. And I'll start with a Henry Liang. He actually wanted to speak about a dog park rather than, or either in addition to, or rather than what we're really here to talk about. And also he spoke to, as did many in this line of letters, spoke to geese and how the dogs would make a big difference in that. I have my reservations on that, and we'll discuss that later. But at this point, quite a few people thought that having dogs on leash in the park would help with the geese population. Okay, that was Henry Liang. Next, Michael Hanna, a brief proposed. He's for the proposed dogs allowed in the park on leash. Once again, he also spoke to the geese and the geese poop. Next was Williams. I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce this right. Searle, Searle, Searle. Also supporting dog walking in Matheson Park, dogs on leash. No further elaboration. Then there was Anya Abrams, support for introducing leash dogs in Matheson Park. Once again, also spoke of the geese being an added bonus. Before I go on, as I said, if any of you are here that I'm summarizing your letters, and if you want to elaborate more on what I've already said, by all means, you'll be able to get up to the microphone and let us know what it is you wanted to add to your letter. And then we have from the O'Connors, we are opposed to allowing dogs in the park. If dogs could, they would abide by the rules, but people being people will not abide by the rules. As a result, and it goes on to just speak about those who don't follow the rules when it comes to dogs. The next letter was from Elizabeth Troop, in support of allowing leash dogs in Matheson Park. Not much of an elaboration beyond that. Lauren Cooper. Yes, the dogs in Matheson. Claudia Smith. Strong support for adopting new policy to allow licensed dogs on leash in Matheson Park. Then David Zweibel, who I know is in the audience. Strong support for the proposed changes. He would also like the board to look seriously at extending the same rules to scenic Hudson and memorial parks as soon as possible. And that was also reiterated in another letter or two about opening up all the parks. The next is from Elaine Katz. A strong support for proposed rules for leash dogs and also scenic Hudson and memorial parks as soon as possible. And then from Betty Krulik, support for open hours for dogs in Matheson Park. Essentially, Betty also spoke to the rules, the original rules for the original program, and thought it was, thought they were the right rules, and we should abide by them. We can talk about those in a minute. Then there's from Gloria Leahy, support for allowing leash dogs in Madison Park at all times. Has been disappointed in the past not being able to bring their dogs with her friends during picnicking. Okay, and then there's Maria Sforza. I feel it should be a dog park enclosed area, not a dog walk, since residents frequently walk around the Riverwalk area. Then there's Jenny Murphy. Yes, open to the dogs at all times without further considerations. And then the last letter, and these letters, I don't know whether they were read into the record at the last. I know not all of them were, but some of them were at the last meeting that the mayor had. This one is from Kay O'Keefe, support of allowing leash dogs in Matheson. So before I ask the board for any comments, I will open the floor up just to a special guest that we have here with us today, the mayor, Jonathan Siegel. I know he wants to preface the meeting today and what his expectations are of this particular meeting.
Thank you.
Is that on?
Well, we'll find out.
I didn't check. Larry, is that on the mic?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
I should have known you'd be prepared. Give me 1 second here. So first, thank you to RPAC for holding this hearing, for everybody else who's participating. Just a couple of things. I know there's other issues that people may want to bring up, but if it's not relating directly to having leash dogs in Matheson Park, bring it to me. Just send me an email. Happy to talk to you about it. Secondly, the reason you're here is because the board got a proposal for a dog park that was very expensive. I think, if I remember correctly, about $650,000. And we thought, okay, well, if we can't do that immediately, let's try to find another solution. And this was the one that came to mind. The specific issue that we want to hear, and I'm making the assumption, and maybe by a show of hands, this would help me. Has everybody seen the rules that the board proposed? It was in my mayor's letter. If put your hand up if you've seen them. Okay, then let me, I'll give you what those were proposed, and then I will tell you the specific ones that I'll say were most hotly debated, because this was the consequence. I'll say this was the outcome of a discussion at the board and with RPAC, and I would say a majority of the board supported this particular position that I'm about to describe. But there are certain elements that are remaining, I'll say, in contention. The rules that were proposed, and this is what we're suggesting that the Recreation Department use to start this, that all dogs must be on leashes of no more than 6 feet at all times, and no one may walk more than 2 dogs at a time. And that, unless otherwise noted by the village, dogs may be walked during all regular park hours of operation. Dog owners must properly clean up and dispose of all waste produced by their dogs. The village plans to install a station with bags and a specific waste basket for this purpose. All dogs walked in the park must be licensed and vaccinated for rabies. The Recreation and Parks Department may establish paths and areas specific to dog walking, most likely near the waterfront, and in the event no dogs are permitted inside the fenced children's playground or the picnic area bordering the train tracks. That should leave picnic tables closer to the waterfront to accommodate picnickers with dogs. And owners near dogs not following rules or exhibiting aggressive behavior can be reported to the Rec and Parks Department or the Police Department, and we gave the phone numbers. So having said all that, the issues that were, I'll say, most hotly debated were, should there be any kind of registration, and what should the hours be? And the sort of two positions were the one that was expressed in this set of rules. I'll call that the majority position, which was no registration and all park hours are open. And I'll admit I was in the minority, but I will accept whatever the out, the recommendation and the decision of the board is and support it fully. My position was that maybe we start with more limited hours and then expand them. And the registration, I was interested in making sure the dogs have been, vaccinated, things of that sort. And I will admit, one can make a counter argument that even if we have them registered with the rec department, people can still ignore that, and there's a question of enforcement. So I'm very much interested in those particular issues. So in effect, it's thumbs up, thumbs down on dogs in the park to begin with. And you can express an opinion on anything else you like, but it would be helpful to know what you think about hours and what you think about registration. Helpful to me, and I think the rest of the board. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, what I will do is ask the board members, the RPAC members, specifically if they have anything to add before we open it up to the public. Anything?
Yeah, I do. You do? So you want?
Just like.
I do not,
Wait, hold
no.
on. Before we go on, as everybody comes up to the microphone that has something to say, please tell us your name and where you live, and then you can go on with your spiel. And that goes for us too, by the way.
So I'm Michael Smith. I've been on RPAC since 2016, I would say. This is actually the first time that we've ever been asked to discuss or debate opening Matheson Park to dogs. In the past, we've had robust discussion about where to have a dog park, whether in the woods or at the northern end of Matheson Park. We don't typically meet like this. Don't think that we're here. We typically meet around the table, either at rec center or at the senior center. It's an informal discussion. During those times when we were discussing a dog park, we did have open hearings at the senior center, and we got a lot of attendance. The reason we're here tonight is to simply allow people to participate by Zoom. Otherwise, we could just as easily have done it at the senior center. The way that this came up now is, well, let me back up. For a few years ago, when we decided to renovate Matheson Park, the biggest things that happened were the new playground and the enlargement of the roadways. You may not know that those were enlarged. And when they were enlarged, they allowed us to introduce, let's just call it toys on wheels, bikes, skates, whatever. We've never, I don't know how that's really, whether people are really taking advantage of that. I do know people are taking advantage of the new park. The next big thing that we anticipate going in that park is a stage. We have to be, there's going to be a stage, a permanent stage, the northern end of the park. And with those changes, plus the opening of the park to residents and non-residents, there's been a lot of changes in the park. So this is the first time that someone came to us 2 months ago and actually suggested that we return to a program that had been started before COVID with early hours for dog walking. It was after that we wanted to see how things would work out with that program didn't really take off that well. And now someone is now coming to us, and the board really took the mantle and decided, let's have a discussion about dogs all the time in the park. What I'm interested in hearing is, how do people anticipate using the park with their dogs on leash? Because that will help shape you heard that there are some restrictions about where the dogs ought to be allowed. Telling us how you expect to be able to interact with your dogs, with your families, while perhaps you have kids in the playground, because the dogs aren't going in the playground. How you anticipate doing that will help us shape whatever restrictions, if any, we would need. Thanks.
Anybody else? No. You okay?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, I will now open it up to the public and ask for anybody who comes up to the mic who either has sent in a letter or even if you haven't and you'd like to say a few words, by all means, tell us who you are, where you live, and we can go from there. Anybody? Sure.
Hi, I am Joanne Pappas, and I live on Cottonette Street, South Cottonette. I've lived in the village 27 years. I'm on my third dog, and every village that neighbors us, Dobbsbury, Hastings, Tarrytown, Sleepy Hollow, the waterfront welcomes dog owners. I go to all these, I take the train, so I don't have to worry about parking, and we have a lovely time. How do we utilize those parks? We bring a picnic, or I just go for a walk with my dog. I always pick up, I'm sure lots of you know me, I pick up human garbage. Human garbage, everyone. There's more human garbage. It's unbelievable. So I'm one of those people. You probably have me on camera picking up garbage, papers, wrappers, cans, bottles. So community, this is about community, seeing people, saying hello. It's just lovely that we opened up the park to outsiders has been wonderful. I go in the park very often just to get fresh air, see the sun, see the river, and there's more people in our parks. It's a beautiful thing. People of every color and nationality. This will be a better thing for our village. And Dobbs Ferry people would love to come here with their dogs too. So thank you. I hope you allow this. And I'm always on the leash, picking up. I got bags in every pocket. Okay.
We appreciate that. Anyone else? Sure.
I'm Lori Fettner. I live at 2 Cindy Lane. I'm a mom for about 11 years and a dog owner for about a year and a half. And I love the renovations in Matheson Park. My kids, you were asking, do we use the scooters? My kids love riding their scooters around the loop. It's like one of the most fun things we do. And I'd love to bring my dog there sometimes. I know not in the playground area. I don't know if it would be allowed watching them scooter or if we have to be down by the water. My kids are old enough to scooter while I hang out by the water with my dog. And I think it would be great. To picnic, to just not leave the dog at home when we're out enjoying nature. I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having this meeting.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Nancy O'Donnell. I live on North Broadway here in Irvington. I've lived here about 22 years and have my first dog, who's almost 1. And I would love to have the opportunity to bring her into Matheson Park and just bring, a little chair with me, sit with her and read a book by the river. So I'm really hoping this goes through. It's such a beautiful, beautiful park, and it would be lovely for all of us to have a place to, actually sit with our pups and enjoy the nature rather. I mean, I know we have the aqueduct and lots of nice walking trails, but to have a place to sit and actually be with them would be fantastic.
Thank you. Larry, do you have anybody yet?
So there's a half a dozen people online. No one has their hands up. So anyone that wants to talk, just put your
Okay.
hand up.
Just ask them if they want to speak to put their hand up. If not, I'll take questions from the audience here.
I do have one person. Hold on.
Okay, let's wait.
Hello, good evening. My name is Lisa again. I live at 61 Havemeyer Road. I'm sorry I'm not with you in person tonight. I have a dog. I'm a first-time dog owner. And I'm also calling in to say I'm very much in favor of opening up Matheson Park to dogs as you've proposed. And just to say, like everyone I think who's spoken tonight, I take dog ownership very seriously. Like I said, I'm a first-time dog owner and I'm very mindful of the interactions that everyone has with my dog, including kids. So we have a rescue, we're working with a trainer to make sure that he's great, not only with kids, but with other dogs. And to make sure that when he does come to Matheson Park or when he's anywhere that we're working with him and training him to make sure that he's great with everyone that he interacts with. So hopefully Matheson Park will be open, and whenever we show up there with him, we're going to take our responsibility for everyone he interacts with very seriously. And in terms of how we would use the park, I think like some of other folks that have spoken already, our kids are older now, so they can be on the playground and we can mind the dog and walk around with the dog, and we can sort of split up and be doing different things, or, you know, taking a walk on the loop with the kids and the dog at the same time. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how we follow any of the rules that the board wishes to adopt. So we're really looking forward to that. And also, as others have said, just think, you know, the addition of the ability to walk dogs will increase the ways in which this can become a village green. And a place where more residents can run into neighbors, because right now it's amazing in the way that it caters to families with kids, that maybe is less of a draw for other folks, and hopefully it can become even more of a place where people will want to be and expect to run into other people and maybe make new friends, because dogs are an amazing magnet for new friends and acquaintances. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please.
Hello. Hello, I'm on the resident. We're in Dr. Street. I also represent the local dog group, Irv Dogs. As a concerned resident and dog owner, I strongly support access to Matheson Park for all dog owners. And I commend the mayor and the board's proposal to allow the dogs in the park at all hours without registration, with rabies vaccination requirements and streamlined rules. I understand RPAC's suggestions for limited morning hours, and I know we've spoken about it. However, this approach has been tried before, and when there was no incident. It was also a bit impractical. For many of the dog owners that I've spoken to through my dog group, and just around my neighborhood, it doesn't really fulfill the need for fair access, because historically the restrictions have really made it very difficult for dog owners to utilize the park. The hours are very limited, and myself included, wouldn't actually be able to meet the hours that we had discussed. So allowing dog ownership, I think, actually would help improve many things about the park. It would give members of the community an opportunity to socialize their dogs, improving behavior, which I think is sometimes a concern. The group would also provide social pressure for others to act responsibly and follow the rules. And you'd have the added benefit of scaring away the geese, which I know there's some contention about, but as a dog owner whose dog loves geese, I assure you they would not be welcome. So I urge you to consider RPAC's position and support open access and the proper guidelines for Matheson Park to keep it safe and enjoyable for everyone. I do think we can learn to coexist, and I think it could be a really great thing, actually. So thank you.
Thank you. Lucinda here.
Oh, yeah.
You're next.
Hi, my name is, well, that's as good as it's gonna get. My name is Lauren Stone. I live on Main Street, and this is my husband, Keith Greenbaum. We're dog owners. We're obviously fully in support of dogs at Matheson Park. I'm gonna just very lightly touch on some of the other things that people have said. I think in terms of improvement, the goose poop will be largely mitigated because dogs will scare away the geese, and it's gross, they'll eat the poop. We don't want them to do that, but they will. And so that will really help reduce, that waste, which is toxic. I know it's gross, but it's true that dogs are disgusting in that way. But good in that way too. And then also, someone came up and mentioned that all the other river towns allow dogs in their parks. And what's happening is people with dogs, especially in Irvington, are going to other parks and giving these other river towns all their business. Why can't we take the other people, other residents from other river towns, have them come here with their dogs, and then when they're like, oh my gosh, I'm hungry, I want coffee, whatever it is, they're now driving more business into the town, helping everybody, dog owner or not. I think the way we would utilize the park is, just taking our dog for a walk, again, having picnics, being able to bring our dogs with us. Rocktoberfest recently happened. I walked all the way down with my dog, saw the sign that they're not allowed in that for even that event. So I had to walk her all the way back up, went back to Rocktoberfest, and I was by myself, and I was like, this is boring, this sucks, I'm by myself. So I left, and not that I was going to spend millions of dollars at Rocktoberfest, but that was money I could have given to the vendors or been there for, the shows and stuff. And then the other thing is, someone also mentioned the social pressure. I will say, when you have other dog owners walking around and you don't pick up after your dog and another dog owner sees it, they get really angry because they don't want you to ruin it for them. So I know that us dog owners will really keep each other accountable, and you'll see a lot less poop and waste all over town, because everyone's taking their dogs to one place and they're forced to pick it up. So, yeah.
Thank you. Can I see a question? Do you think that dogs should have been allowed at Rocktoberfest?
I do. And I only say that because, I mean, maybe, well, no, it's not any different. We take our dog with us to the farmer's market every single Sunday. Everyone else has their dogs there. And people are very mindful, very respectful. We had an encounter with another dog that was a little more aggressive, and the owner was very good about being like, hey, your dog cannot approach my dog. Please don't. Everyone stayed clear. And as far as I know, obviously, I'm not at every farmer's market. I don't know the history of the farmer's market. I haven't heard or seen any incidents. And so same thing with Rocktoberfest. It's like, it's an outdoor festival. You want to sit and have a beer. When we used to live in Brooklyn, we used to go to all the outdoor festivals with our dog. And it was fun. It was an opportunity to socialize with friends and enjoy beer. So yeah.
Yeah, hey, that was great. I just also want to make sure I answer your message directly, or your question directly. Intended use of the park is, walking with our dogs, and it's an open space. I think it's very tough to be restrictive in a space like that, have a dog listen to you, not want to follow their nose. And we treat our dog like our child. We bring them to the water and show them the view. And obviously we're protective of our child, of our dog, and we want to make sure they're not going to get into trouble. And we have that responsibility as a dog owner, as like member of the family. And I think that I just want to mention that in terms of moving forward with rules and restrictions, I think that people in general have good intentions, and there's not much you can do to keep someone in one specific area without, a little bit of carryover. There's a fence at the playground, and I think that's a great barrier. But other than that, I think let people enjoy the park.
So one of the things that the mayor had asked that people comment on if they wanted to
Mhm.
was registration.
Mhm.
We did use registration. Granted, the prior program, when it was devised, people actually commuted to work. COVID's changed that, so more and more people are working from home, right? But part of the hours that were developed at that time was because that's when people were home before they actually took the trains and went to work.
Mhm.
But the registration part can be viewed as the same as any other rec department program where people register their children or whoever else, so we know who's participating, so to speak. The challenge is that now that the park is open to everyone, how to get that word out. But I would encourage, I haven't heard anybody talk about registration at all. That was a hot
Actually,
issue, as the
may
mayor
I-
said before the board. So I don't want to leave that issue. If you have something to say about it, then please say something about it.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm not particularly opposed to it because I have to get the dog licensed anyways, and we have to renew the license and update all the paperwork. It's not any more paperwork. I guess my only question is, and it's kind of like to what you're saying is, if it's now open to the public, how do we know if they're, you know what I mean? It's a little, I think, again, I personally don't have any opposition to it, but I just don't know how that's going to be enforced. And I guess that's more of a, administrative sort of thing that I wouldn't know how to resolve.
I also wonder, if we have friends from the city come visit us and their dog isn't scheduled or registered, does that mean they can't come in the park with us? I mean, it's a public park. If we look at the other cities in Westchester County, it's a pretty open policy and it works well. I mean, why differ?
Let me speak to that issue as well. Irvington's Madison Park has one way in and one way out, and it's not a big thoroughfare going in and out. So anybody who's afraid of dogs or is apprehensive about walking has to walk right past the dogs, and that's been, expressed to us about a concern we should have. In addition to that, as far as the geese issue is concerned, I've spoken to people who do the geese relief, and they said unless the dog is off leash chasing the geese away, they're not moving. You can walk up to them, with the dog on leash. If they see that leash, they're probably not going to move. Anyway, that's just what we've been told. In addition to that, while I'm on that, well, I'll bring this up later. It's a letter we got from a parent in the woods about parents of dogs. Yes.
Are we good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you're next.
Hi, I'm John Emmett. I live on 57 Main Street. I was here and very involved with the last go around on dogs on leash in Matheson Park. And we went through a lot of back and forth on how to do this and how to enforce things and then we started the program and the hours were very narrow, the scope was very, very specific. And a lot of people really couldn't go because, you're not up that early or, so opening those hours up wider would obviously bring more folks. So, it didn't succeed. So fast forward, COVID happened. And we had a lot of dogs in Irvington prior to that. COVID happened and everyone seemed to be adopting their new best friend. So the face of Irvington has changed. There are a lot more tails now than there were then. And, it's like, it's like they said, they treat their dog like, their children. I mean, that's my daughter, Anna, and we treat our dogs probably better than we treat her. And Anna's actually really the reason why I got involved in this. I, grew up with dogs. My wife grew up with dogs, but she's not a dog person. And month after month after month, Anna was like, I want a dog, I want a dog, I want a dog. Persuasive essays and all sorts of, whatnot. So then she had to do a poll. So, okay, we put out a poll on Facebook and people started responding. So that's how I got involved with all of this. So here we are now, and we've noticed a lot of things. Dog owners are very, very passionate to the point where, they will actually react to, the bad eggs of the community. People like, if you see a dog that's pooping and, they're not picking it up, it's like, you're the first to walk out with a bag and say, hey, do you need this? I mean, to the point where you get this guilt when, your dog goes to the bathroom, it's like, oh, there's poop, should get that. And as far as Matheson Park was concerned, it's like, we're all aware of the park pate and the dogs love it. And, it's when we would walk our dogs down there, it's like if our dogs were near the geese, they would bark and the geese would just sort of either shuffle off or go to the other park. But I truly and honestly believe we're at a point where there are so many of us that want this. And I know that there's a group that doesn't want it and they have their reservations and there's a lot of give and take.
I don't know that there is a group that doesn't want it.
Oh, then you know what? Hey, I'll take that.
I mean, you can tell by the letters that most people, or it seems to be that most people are in favor. That's why we're having this, because if there's anybody that wants to speak against it, should they dare come into this den. But I don't know that that's the issue, to be honest.
Okay.
But thank you.
Well, I'm all for it. And I think there are a lot of really, solid citizens that own pets in this town and will do the right thing. Are there bad actors? Absolutely. But I think they're in the minority. So hopefully, this will be considered and move forward. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
On the note of bad actors, I do want to read this. I just got this the other day. On Friday. And it's a letter from a person who uses the woods, the Irvington Woods. And she sent the letter to I shouldn't say it's a tree, I don't know if it's a tree, but the person sent a letter to the Irvington Woods Committee chairperson, and it goes like this, just in case anybody thinks that all dog owners are, concerned about other people. I'm reaching out regarding the off-leash dog issue in Irvington Woods. My wife is having quite a bad time being jumped by one large friendly, and I put friendly in quotes, dogs, and when she tells the owner to put them on leash, she is made out to be the problem. Friday and Saturday, she called the police who can offer no real help, as they say they can only do something if they are present at the time of the altercation. Saturday, she encountered a woman with 3 off-leash dogs, and one attempted to jump on her. She raised her leg to defend herself. This woman became very upset, not sure exactly why, since she was the one breaking the law. My wife immediately called the police. So while on the phone with the police, the woman with 3 off-leash dogs told my wife she was the problem, and the woman would unleash her dogs on her. This did not seem to move the police to want to do anything. My wife was also told that she was clearly the problem and needed to change her attitude. The police will drive to the nature center and take a statement, but this does nothing to resolve an ongoing problem. I've seen many new families recently, and I've seen many new families recently, and I wouldn't want them to feel unsafe as I have heard from others in the past. As you know, walking with the Girl Scouts was usually a problem, as I had at least 2 run-ins with snarly off-leash dog owners. Do you think this is just a losing battle that continues to make the woods unsafe for small children? Anyone who has a genuine fear of dogs, who just doesn't want to jump all over and be scratched by out of control friendly dogs, it's clearly not a function of poor signage, but rather a nasty attitude of the dog owners. There are plenty of law-abiding people who use their leashes, but the entitlement of a few just don't care. A few that just don't care tends to spoil the experience of others. It seems to me that for most of the time, dog walkers will not even see people in the woods, which is great. But for them to lack the common courtesy to use the dog, especially when asked, and then be combative about it, is unbelievable. Please let me know who you think is the best to turn to and may want to help. My only reason for reading that letter is the fact that a lot of the letters that were sent in made no deference to the quality of though it be the minority, dog owners. I just think, that we need to present both sides. You got to remember, this is the type of stuff we get as the Recreation Parks Advisory Committee. And it comes because we're, the Irvington Woods is within our purview, and as every park in the village, we hear everything. We get it comes back to us, and Maureen can attest to it. She's the one who's going to hear it probably first. But eventually it comes to us, and we need to, balance it. Unfortunately, this is a rare, but it does happen. And like I said, I don't want anybody to think that this is a win-win-win, because there can be issues down the road that we will have to deal with. But okay, yes. Please come up to the mic.
I was just gonna say, my name is Janine. Irvington is really, we are really fortunate to have 2 parks here. And I would say, Matheson Park is a great place for the dogs, specifically because in case parents are worried about their children being around the dogs, they can stay in that enclosed space where the dogs are not allowed to be. And also, if just as an adult, if they're nervous about being around dogs, there's a whole other park that's not that far away that they can go to. So I would just say, maybe if there's a way for us to kind of emphasize that, so that it's like a win-win for everybody, really. That's it.
Thank you.
You have one online.
Yes.
Hello, thank you. I wanted to commend RPAC Jeffrey Glick. I'm a 11-year resident. I'm involved with Taxpayers for Irvington's Future and also with Irvington activists. I wanted to thank RPAC for opening up, for investing in the playground, for seeing this park more used. It is a gem of our village, for opening up to non-residents. I mean, when we first moved here 11 years ago, I felt like the park was vastly underused, and it's improved. I still would assert, and I know others might disagree, that it is, compared to, let's say, a Brooklyn Park or the Terrytown Parks or whatever, vastly underused for how spectacular Matheson is. And outside of the improved playground where the kids are using it. And so my comments, I wanted to step back because I agreed with so much of what's said here, but Joe Archino invited the public, I think it was 6 years ago, was it 7 years ago, to participate ahead of the playground renovation. And there was a series of hearings, and I participated in all of them. And the thing that Joe and I agreed on when we discussed this is Irvington is an unusual, spectacular village. We don't have a central gathering place. We don't have a square. We have this sloping Main Street we have these beautiful underused parks, or often used by non-Irvington residents in the case of scenic softball fields or whatever. We don't have a gathering place. There isn't, we'll take over Main Street for, Memorial Day. But the beauty of dogs and children is it allows neighbors to meet each other. There's nothing like, and as an owner of 2 dogs and 3 kids, there's nothing like dogs to bring people together. Even kids don't bring people together like dogs meeting each other. So the goal, I think, ultimately for Matheson is to become a central square, a gathering place. And if you've been to towns that have wonderful common greens, neighbors meet each other. They develop a sense of community. And I really think as a parent, you had to have to choose between having to go into the woods or the aqueduct or to the playground with your kids. That's a terrible choice. You want to bring both your kids and if you're an adult, you want to walk your dog along this beautiful riverfront that it makes Irvington so special. So I feel to enable that central square, Matheson Dogs, I think, is essential. As the last piece in this, you're working on the stage, you've improved the playground, we begged for wider paths so the insurance would let you bring scooters in, because it was crazy. My kids were like, why can't I have a scooter, a small bike? And so this is like the last step, I think, in fulfilling your, agenda of creating the central square. To your questions about the leashes, I'm in the woods every day as my wife and our 2 dogs, and you are right, it is very rare, but there are maybe 3% of dog owners who are running off leash, and some of them are aggressive dogs, and that is a problem. That said, it's something that happens, and we're in there every day. It's something that maybe affects you once a year, and we're in there every day. But it is a problem. But I actually would argue that you, in some ways, might create a very leashed space that's easier to enforce. In Matheson, in terms of the leashes, I'm not in favor of off-leash dogs. Just to be clear. And so I think that you won't solve the problem of deep woods off-leash rogue dogs by not letting them into Matheson. I think those are separate problems. And in a way, you could walk your leash dog. I think it'll be very easy to enforce because everyone can see, I'm not saying that there won't be bad actors, but the community of dog owners will be able to sort of say, look at the sign, leash. And whenever we insist that 9 times out of 10, if there's an off-leash dog, they're well behaved, and we say put the leash on, because we are, and they will. But there's going to be bad humans in any situation. Lastly, to agree with this comment, I would also respect those who dislike dogs. I disliked dogs as a kid. Now I love them. And keep scenic dog free, for instance, and respect that, especially around the senior center where you might have people feel more frail. Not every park needs to be dogs, but we are the Bulldog Village. We don't have a single dog park. We have the aqueduct, but you don't meet people on the aqueduct. We have the woods, you don't meet people.
The pond, Halsey Pond is.
Right. Well, but again, Halsey Pond is hard to access. It's not a central square. Again, going back to this philosophy of, do we have a central square? And Halsey Pond, you're circling, so everyone has to go the same way culturally, so you don't actually meet. And then in terms of the final questions about the hours and registration, I respect however you guys do it. I think it's very hard for citizens to keep it straight. There's certain hours and not. So I would encourage the board to hear the trustees and just go for it. But if you need a pilot period, that's understandable. I think it's very hard, as was said, for dog owners to remember, I'm 15 minutes too early. It's just too complicated, which makes it hard. And in terms of registration, I think if you feel that's necessary, that's great. Again, it makes it a little more complicated, but I respect that. But the overall project of really opening it to be a central square, I think at all hours, I would strongly encourage RPAC to consider. So thank you.
You have one online also.
Taking up the idea of it being a village square. If I can ask by a show of hands, those people who would bring their dog to the park, how many of you would be walking your dog to the park? So almost everybody, as opposed to
I would be a driver, but
a driver. How many of you would be a driver? Just a handful. Okay.
Yeah.
The reason I asked that is that, as you can imagine, around Matheson, parking can be difficult. So, we would want to, if we had to take that into account, on how to deal with that. If we thought that there were a lot of people going to be driving there, we just have to take that into account. So that's why
I would imagine it would be 90%
Yeah, walk-
walkers in that whole village. And then on the weekends, in terms of that town square, there is actually much less of a parking problem because of all
Right,
the.
because you can use the Metro North.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have one online.
One second, Larry. Go ahead.
No problem. Just letting you know.
Okay.
My name is Harry Liang. I live on South Buckout Street. Currently a board director at the Half Moon North Co-op. I'd like to just speak from a parent's perspective of the times that I had in this town before we got a dog and the towns that and what has happened and how it has impacted my life after I got a dog. Since we live right on South Buckout, I used to take the kids every day to Matheson, play on the playground, love the park. I think you guys did a spectacular job. This is like a prize and a gem for the community. But after I got my dog, I feel, I don't want to use the word discriminated against, but I can't bring my entire family there because I have adopted this dog. And to me, this dog is my family, in every sense of the word. I treat my dog and I think we are all kind of perplexed at every time we have to make a decision whether or not to go to the park or not go to the park because we have a dog. This does impact my family incredibly negatively, and I think I'm speaking for my family here when this just brings a lot of sadness to our lives. And I think opening up the park for leash dogs can bring a lot of happiness and joy. And that's a human communication that I'm trying to bring to you. And I understand there are a lot of rules and there are a lot of people that go against the rules but I think that's a communication problem with Irvington Woods. There aren't that many signs that it's very legible at all entrance points, maybe that people don't know that they have to be leashed. And there are things that we can do as a community to communicate that better. And maybe they're even out of towners that we don't know, but I think through communication, we could come to terms with that. But from my perspective, as a parent that recently got a dog in May, this has dramatically changed my life for the negative. And instead of feeling joy and happiness at a park, I'm faced with a decision that causes me pain and sorrow. And I think it causes a lot of my family here pain and sorrow. Would you guys like to say anything before that ends? Okay. But I think that's why they're here. They also wanted to support the cause.
To throw out a bit of irony, when the mayor and one of the new trustees, who's not on board yet, but will win election in November, came to the RPAC meeting. We actually had the RPAC meeting in the Nature Center. And while we're having the meeting, everybody's sitting around the table and I hear a car pulling. I just, for some reason, I don't know what made me get up, but I got up and I looked out the window and what did I see? Open the door, the dog runs out into the woods. I mean, it happens, but it's, I have to assume it's rare, but the irony of it was pretty stark. Anyway, anybody else?
I was just gonna ask, is it proposed to have an actual dog run associated with this, or just simply a?
No, just, yeah, I mean, a dog park has been discussed. However, we don't know how it's going to interact with stage because the stage is going in the same area where most people in their mind can put the dog park. Problem is the dog park, if we put it all the way in the back right corner, we'll never get permission from MTA. That's one of their access points to get into onto the tracks. So from probably a 50-foot, from the corner, 50 foot, and then there is some space, but whether or not that would be big enough for a dog park, we don't know.
Okay.
You also have to bring, we were looking at that issue. And half people, 50% of people didn't want it there, 50% of people wanted it up at the woods. One of the issues was bringing water to the site.
Okay.
You'd have to lay pipe, bring the water from the front all the way to the back of Matheson Park.
That was
And so-
prohibitively expensive.
So there were a number of issues that.
Is that a requirement for a dog?
Well, people,
Other open area parks don't require water?
it wasn't a matter of a requirement. It was a matter of, this was a desire in designing the park.
No.
So
Exactly.
the third, I mean, one of the other places that we were looking at a park was by the tennis court along the aqueduct
And Memorial.
and Memorial, because there's open field, there's an open property there, except you have an abutting homeowner who was not in favor of that, and for other reasons, including the cost. That's, the mayor is talking about $650,000 to build that dog park. The terrain there is a little uneven.
It's also not a gathering.
It's not, it's also not a central place. It didn't take care of that issue. I mean, we've heard that before.
And with the other issue with where to put a dog park specifically was ADA compliance too, making sure that it was accessible, and that certainly, as anyone might imagine, added to the cost wherever we might have put it. Yeah.
Is that a requirement as well?
That
Yeah,
is a
If
requirement.
there was gonna be any major renovations, other than to the existing buildings or something like a stage wouldn't necessarily be, but if they were going to put, a dog park or, even a dog run probably, half of the picnic area, as you go down the hill on your right, would have to be a labyrinth of, ramps to be able to get an ADA approval for the park. And it just, was the numbers were becoming astronomical. Anybody else? Yes,
Just a two-part question. I don't want to dive too much into it.
I need you on the mic
Oh, I'm sorry.
because it gets picked up. It's being recorded.
So two-part question. I don't want to go too much into it. It's a little bit about the dog park. So with that, is it basically like shelved right now to have the dog park at all, strictly because of cost and not a
It's not
knowledge?
shelved because it was not brought up.
It was not brought up. Is there an opportunity to bring it up as opposed to doing? And then I guess my second part to the question
It's
is,
up to you guys.
what is the stage? Because I hadn't even heard of this.
The stage is to allow weekly, weekend, performances.
Mhm.
Either by people from the Town Hall Theater, or, there are Shakespeare in the Park people in town also.
Mhm.
They'll be able to make use of it. It's really, once again, as Mr. Glick, as Mr. Glick said, it's really to create a gathering spot.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Actually, can I piggyback on that?
All right. Being that you're a tag team.
Yeah, just on the topic of understanding the stage, was there a process and a design that was okay, and how do we get into that conversation so we know
Designed for.
the stage?
Yes, they were.
Was that approved by the town?
Board of
or-
Trustees, yes.
Board of Trustees, okay. I'm just wondering, as a,
It was.
I moved to the
We
town
were
and,
involved to a small degree,
Right.
about where we think it should go.
Uh-huh.
And what it really needs to be as far as the structure itself, to be able to handle all different types of events.
but was there a public notice sent? I only
It-
asked
it was-
because
It was probably 2 or 3 years ago, and the
Yeah.
Board of
Okay.
Trustees handled it.
we moved to Irvington in 2019, and we're so happy to be in such an amazing town and want to be a part of beautifying it, making it better. And part of what I'm realizing is, I never got the mayor's letter, and I want to make sure that people know where to find this information. I think we could do a better job of communication of making it known.
Yeah, my name is Beth Cropper and
Hey.
I'm new on this committee, but if you go on the government website,
Uh-huh.
you can sign up for SMS and email notifications.
Mhm.
And I did that the minute I moved here 20 years ago
Okay.
about every single meeting. And many of the people I know, I happen not to do this, will open every single notification, go into the agenda, and then the agenda includes attached correspondence.
Okay, cool.
And that's
Great.
actually true of all municipalities throughout Westchester.
The village, the board of, the school board also has the same process.
Mhm.
You can get in and look at their agendas and,
Yeah.
Great, yeah.
But the difference is you can sign up for the school ones, but
Right.
there is specifically, you can choose SMS or email because different people prefer different modes.
Mhm.
And I have found it very helpful. You can sign up for everything from committee agendas to the Board of Trustees particularly, I think is most helpful, but also things like the bidding process, like when the fire department wants to buy a fire engine, that is all listed, and depending upon your desire for information, you can get more or less and titrate it.
Yeah, and I think the more informed, the better for all citizens. So just a thought, what if, as we're thinking about rules and signage, that we included something that said like a QR code that would link you right to the source of information. So
It is on the
make it
website.
quick and easy.
It is on the
Yeah,
Bill
it's on-
Irvington government website, but
Yeah.
it may not be so easy to find, but it's there.
Sure, just a suggestion, a QR code is something everyone can access. Quick and easy way to
Yeah.
get people
I
informed.
would suggest writing to the Board of Trustees about that because surely that's their communication.
Larry, did you hear the suggestion?
Sorry, Larry.
That's our village administrator.
Well, I did. Go right ahead.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. David,
Larry, you
you've
have
been
something
waiting. I'm sorry.
before we take any more from you're gonna be next, Dave, but I want to see if there's anything from the cyberspace.
Oh,
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, it's Nikki Coddington. I've been a resident of Irvington for 32 years. And many of you know my dog Hamish, a rescue from Georgia. I, first of all, as the former chair of the Irvington Woods Committee, Rick and others know that, we have been dealing with the question of dogs off leash in the woods for a long time. But I feel that the Matheson Park situation is different. And I'm happy that Matheson Park has been open to non-residents. But as a resident, I feel that I'm kind of excluded from Matheson Park because when I go out, most of the time I'm walking with my dog and I can't walk him in Matheson Park. I would love to do what some of the others have done, have said about, using Matheson Park as a town square and meeting others, and with or without their dogs in Matheson Park, and really, making use of that wonderful asset, entirely instead of feeling excluded from it. I do understand and appreciate those who are afraid of dogs or whose children are afraid of dogs. I feel that keeping them on leash and in certain areas of Matheson can ameliorate some of those fears. I just feel that in Matheson Park, it's a small enough area with enough people who are responsible dog owners who will monitor themselves and each other, that we can keep the behavior of dogs in line and not disturb others and reap the benefits of sharing that space with our dogs and our families and our friends. So thank you for considering this.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki.
Dave, you wanted to go?
Hi all, David Zweigel, Cottonette Street, 30-year resident. I've lived in 3 different houses and 3 different sets of dogs over the years. And they are part of the family. I particularly want to, this gentleman's description of how dogs are part of the family and taking them with you on walks, on picnics, on whatever, I feel is, I couldn't support that more. And Jeff's comments about a town square type feeling, a town gathering point, Matheson Park is the place for that. I want to start out by saying specifically, I strongly support the recommendations that the mayor put out in his letter to the letter of what was put out there. But I do want to address his 2 points of hesitation specifically. As a preempt to that, 2 sets of facts. There are 50 scenic Hudson's parks. Of the 50 scenic Hudson parks, our scenic Hudson is the only one that does not allow dogs. 49 allow dogs, ours doesn't. Whatever that means, point of fact.
I'll tell you what it means.
Yeah, and I know there's ball fields and all of that, but there are other parks that have ball fields that do allow dogs.
Hudson didn't argue with it.
They didn't argue with it, but in fact, we are the only one. Then secondly, Tarrytown Scenic Hudson. Tarrytown Scenic Hudson has a very open dog policy. And in fact, they have a children's playground area with a splash pool and all of that stuff, playground equipment, no fence. And dogs on leash. Dogs on leash are not excluded from anywhere. I think there's a little sign, please stay out of the splash pool. Whether that's followed or not, I'm not sure. But somehow they have managed to survive for the last, how many years has that been open? 4 or 5 years? Without feeling the need for additional rules and regulations. There's no requirement that there be a separate license to bring your dog to that park. There's no problem with the dogs that can walk anywhere, bothering the children in the splash pool. I mean, maybe they do have problems, but they seem to have handled them. And I don't have exact numbers on it, but as I go there with or without my dog, on any given day, I would say that they probably have 5 to 10 times the use of the park than we do of Matheson Park, including dogs, children, concerts, where dogs are allowed when they have their concerts as well, all on leash. And I would also note that they have less of a geese problem than we do. Maybe they have guys cleaning up geese poop more often than we do, but when you go there, it's a very different experience about geese than it is in our parks. So I don't know, one would have to do a study to see what's happening there, but for whatever reason, they have it figured out that they can allow anyone to come into their park with a dog on a leash and not bother the kids in the playgrounds and whatever. And it seems to work. That said, I still strongly agree with the rules that the mayors and the BOT came up with that include, we do have a fenced area for the children's playground. And yes, dogs should not be allowed in there. That does make sense. And there is some reason to have a dog picnic area and a non-dog picnic area. That may be a good reason. So I have nothing against them. In terms of licensing, though, we had a lot of discussion about our parks being open to the general public. And that became a major issue. And it appeared there was a group of people that didn't want that to happen. And then there was a much larger group of people that wanted it open. And the decision was made to open it up. If you have private licensing of dogs, or what should I say, Irvington licensing of dogs.
We're talking about Greenberg,
Right. Well,
which is required anyway, technically.
okay. So if you're saying that the laws of the town of Greenberg need to be followed and applied in our park. Of course they do. And they do in the woods as well. So I don't think we need any rule that dog licenses are required in the park. They're required in Irvington, whether anyway.
We're not asking for another license. We're asking to check that that your dog is a licensed dog. That's it. Because then if we have a legal issue where a dog bites somebody, the first group of people that are gonna get sued is the village.
Okay, well, I would say I would have no objection to
That's-
at some point doing checks of whether your dog is licensed.
From my perspective, that's all it was.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay, well then, great. I have no issue with that. Likewise, on the timing issue, I agree with, as most everyone has spoken here, that, remembering that it ends at 9 and starts at 10:30, and you have your friend visiting from out of town who's bringing his dog, and they get here late on the train. That adds a whole layer of complexity and enforcement issues that why try to solve a problem that doesn't seem to exist in Tarrytown. They do it all the time. So I would strongly suggest that you follow exactly what the mayor laid out, the mayor and the BOT laid out with their rules and regulations.
And I would add the second go round because they came to us as at the nature center that day. And the new trustee said that he would be okay with going with the same amount of starting and ending hours that the original program was for. Between that meeting and the Board of Trustees meeting, that went out the window, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. But when we took this issue back up, it was on the premise that it was going to be limited hours and there was going to be registration. Just throwing that out there. I mean, that's.
Okay, I understand that. It appears that the majority of speakers and letter writers are into not having hours.
Right.
Okay.
I get it.
And enforcing any rule. I'll also mention I am on the Woods Committee. I've been there for many years. And I am particularly annoyed at unleashed dogs in the woods. And I would like to support a program of enforcement of those people. It's a handful of people that are doing that.
We know, and we almost can tell you when they're in the woods because most of them are
Right.
dog walkers from Dobbs Ferry or other areas.
So I think
Yeah.
it would be nice if RPAC got together with the Woods Committee, with the police department, and worked on some program that we could, photograph the people, catch them on camera, and
Maureen and I had this conversation with Zoe today, actually.
good.
So she's always pleading to figure out some way to get enforcement moving because of that letter I just.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yes, I mean, it's out of control, with just a few bad actors. And if there's no enforcement, who's going to do it?
Agreed.
So, I think we can solve that problem. And I definitely go with Nikki. That problem and what's happening in Matheson Park are two entirely different bailiwicks. And if it isn't, and there's lots of problems, okay, then let's add layers of regulations on at that point.
Got it.
Okay?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
David.
Maureen, do you want to say something? You okay? Okay, all right. Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead. Let me. Anybody who hasn't spoken yet, if you need to, please raise your hand.
Hi, I'm Alan Richardson, and I think the first go around with the dog permits, my dog was dog number 1, Lucky. And I don't think we added that many more dogs after that, I know. Yes.
There may have been-
Okay.
I think there may have been 20.
20.
Maybe.
The reason for that, too many rules and regulations, too many limited hours, too many requirements. If I've got to have my dog registered with Greenberg, why don't I have to have my dog registered in the township of New Rochelle when I go there? Or when I go to Rye, or when I go to Larchmont? or when I go to Terrytown, because
I don't
these
know
are
if
the
you're
places,
supposed to.
these are the places, no, you're not supposed, you don't have to. The regulations are posted. There's nothing like that. Leash, that's what it says, rabies vaccine, that's it.
Mm.
So I take my dog, I no longer have one. She died last year. I'm going to get another one. But to take my dog and walk by the water and enjoy a big communal space, I have to drive across the county. I live 3 blocks from Matheson. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And when you create rules and regulations that narrow a program, and you know this because you're the recreation department, you decrease participation. The way you make a program succeed is you increase participation. The way to do that is to make it easier for people to comply and to participate. So I would encourage you to lower your requirements, lower your regulations, open your hours, and you're going to have a successful program. Okay, thank you.
You have one online also.
Go ahead, Larry.
Hi, it's Arlene Burgos, the trustee. I just want to clarify one point, which is this issue of, just to clarify that the issue of liability, we checked with our counsel and Marianne did not say that we would have liability in the park. I think, Rick, you said there would be liability, but I don't think that's what counsel told us. I just wanted to be clear on that point. That's all I wanted to add.
Okay, thank you. By the way, my phrase was potential liability. Sitting between 2 lawyers, I'm not going there.
Larry, anybody else?
No one else has their hand up.
I just wanted to ask an additional
Come to the mic again, please, if you would. Thanks.
I was hoping I could spring from.
Yeah.
So say somebody that doesn't live in Greenberg brings their dog to the park. Their dog is not licensed in Greenberg. How are you going to control that?
If they have a tag that says they were inoculated, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's good enough.
So you're saying a rabies vaccine tag is
Yeah.
all they need, not a
No, that's not what
Greenberg?
I'm saying. I'm saying that's what we're proposing.
Okay,
That the rules will be made up by the Board of Trustees.
because the last time you had to be registered in Greenberg, then you had to get a permit from the village. So it was like a 3-part thing. You had to have the rabies vaccine, then you had to go to Greenberg, then you had to go to Irvington. So you're saying now, if you have a rabies tag, that's what you're proposing?
Yes.
Okay.
You couldn't get a rabies, you can get a license in Greenberg without the rabies. That was a Greenberg requirement.
You can't get it without the
Could not,
rabies.
yeah.
No, I'm aware of that.
I don't think you could probably register your dog.
But I'm
anywhere.
talking about people that use our park that don't live in Greenberg. They're not gonna have dogs registered in Greenberg. So are you limiting the people who can bring their dogs to the park to Greenberg residents if you do that?
No, we're just stating the dog has to be, vaccinated. So-
And can I just say?
Yeah, go ahead,
I
Matt.
feel like there's an undercurrent here
Mhm.
that somehow like we're the enemy, that we've all lived here for 30 years, over 30 years.
Over
34
20 years, so.
Had the dog myself, well, did I last year? Didn't get to walk my dog in the park, would love to go walk my dog in the park. Other members of RPAC have been, are dog owners. We all love dogs, but I mean, we're not trying to limit anything. We're listening to, and we hear you.
Mhm.
We hear everybody. That doesn't mean that there shouldn't be some common sense requirements. And that's really what we're looking at. And we're trying to hear,
Right.
we're here to find out what you have to say. Well, so I would just say, yeah, we're open, we're listening, and but we're not here to necessarily limit anything. We're just listening, and then we're going to propose rules to the trustees, and ultimately they're the ones that are going to decide.
Okay.
So it's not our decision. We're
an
advisory
committee.
Yeah.
All right.
So-
Thank you.
so-
Thanks for your time.
There's always a challenge
Mhm.
when you have rules on how to enforce them.
Mhm.
We spend a lot of time when we discuss a rule on anything. Gee, how is it going to get enforced? And most of the time, you come to the conclusion that you set the rule because you hope that it will shape behavior, not because of the quote unquote punishment that's going to come, because the only real enforcement is issuing a summons. Police officer has to come and issue a summons. That's the way it's dealt with the dogs off leash in the park. I mean, on the woods. And you don't really want to go there. You establish a rule because you think it's needed for safety or for some other reason. And then you hope that people will comply. And you hope that, as other people have said, other people who are there will help that enforcement. Other dog owners who see that someone's been let off leash will say something to that dog owner saying, the dogs aren't allowed off leash. I mean, we're not calling police to come issue a summons.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sure.
I just had one question regarding enforcement. As it was, I think, mentioned, I walk around town with my dog. My dog is licensed. Nobody comes up to me, or at least I haven't had anybody from the town come up to me and ask me to present, proof of my license of having my dog, something I did as a resident of Greenberg. And, I'm concerned that if we do bring our friends from out of town, if there's 10 people and everyone I wouldn't even know where to find it. We have a license. I wouldn't be able to present it to you on the spot. And are you going to be having someone enforcing that? Because I think there's also a concern of selective enforcing.
We're not having anybody. This is
Okay,
whatever
sounded
the rules that they published, that's what we have
okay.
discussed.
Okay, all right, just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
You have one online also.
Okay.
I just wanted to, first of all, thank you for your comments, because thank you for your service to the town, and you guys have done an amazing job with our park. So thank you. To your point on enforcement, I think this is for all, whether advisory or rule makers. The reality is stop signs aren't always heeded. People don't always wear their seatbelts, right? But there's good in coming from common sense regulations, and they tend to get enforced when someone is doing something that gets them pulled over, or
That's generally why the rules are there.
exactly. And so you may have rules, probably a well-behaved dog, even if you did have this registration rule, which I would probably prefer to skip, but it has some justification. Probably no one's going to enforce it unless the dog is being there's an incident, and then it enables the police to cite them on multiple violations, first for being out of control, but also for not being responsible owners. And that's true of like wearing your seatbelt or having insurance, and many other useful laws. So I don't think you guys should have to overly worry about that it's not 100% enforced, because if there's clear rules, all of us will help you keep people well behaved, I think is the point. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Larry?
Hello, can you hear? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to clarify something that someone said. If you license your dog in Greenberg, you must produce proof of rabies vaccination. And you're given a tag, and that little tag can go on your dog's collar. That's one thing. The other thing I want to ask is, are you going to read the letters, or at least have a consensus of the letters that were submitted?
I spoke to the letters, who wrote them and what the basis of the letter was. I didn't read word for word. I think if that needed to be done, that needs to be done by the board of trustees at their meeting next.
Okay, well, the Board of Trustees passed my letter on to you, and I don't want to be redundant, but just let me say in brief, I am absolutely in support of having leased dogs at the park. And also, for people who are concerned about safety issues, the farmers market on Sunday is a much more confined space. And there are so many dogs at the farmers market. And there are toddlers running around and kids in strollers and the elderly, and there's no problem at the farmer's market at all. So having leash dogs at the park will be even much nicer than that because there's so much more space. That's all.
Can you tell us who you are, please?
Hmm?
We need your name.
My name is Kay O'Keefe, and
Okay,
I
thank
live at 171 South Buckout Street.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else here?
Can I just ask one question?
My name is Janine. Associated with this, is there a plan to have maybe a few extra garbage cans and or
There'll be-
waste?
There'll be doggy refuse containers
Oh.
in
In the park.
whether one or two. They'll be centrally located. You'll see them and they'll have bags and a receptacle to put your
Yeah, okay.
doggy do in.
Because I would think that's important.
At least one at the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do we need to work with DPW on that? I was just wondering now.
Okay. Maureen, you've already looked at getting those containers, right? Yeah, so we're good. Of course, DPW will have to empty them.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
all right. Any other questions? Larry, you have anything?
No.
Okay, no other questions. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
for coming.